Hey guys, welcome to this section. In our previous session, we looked at the worksheet basics and we looked at how we can create the worksheet and manipulate the worksheet. In this section, we'll be looking at how we can enter data into the worksheet, and we'll also be looking at how we can hide rows and how we can hide columns within the worksheet. So let's get started. Now, if I come here to this worksheet, maybe I enter January. Take for instance, I'm creating a sheet that has to do with budget, and maybe I enter February here. Okay, so I've just entered two months, January and February. So having done this, the next thing I may want to do is to enter maybe the money we made as income in January. So I may say the income that was generated, or the sales. Let's look at sales and say the sales that was generated. Okay, I may want to enter the sales that we made in January. So I can come here and type sales, and I'll type the amount that was made in January alone. So let's say we sold about 45,000, and in February we sold maybe about 60,000. Okay, so if you look at these Excel sheets, one of the things you notice is this. If I come here and I stretch this, and I also stretch this, you can see by default all texts align to the left. So in Excel, your text will align to the left and your numbers will align to the right by default. So this text, can you see this text? Sales is aligning to the left and the numeric values align to the right. This is the default way Excel usually align values and text. Text is aligned to the left by default and numbers are aligned to the right by default. For instance, maybe I made a mistake here. Instead of putting March here, I went to put April. Okay, I typed April here, and maybe I said in April, maybe we sold about 76,000. Let's say we sold about 76,000. Now, if I want to include March here, so what do? I'll need to insert a new column. So without deleting this or retyping this, I'll just come straight to this column, click here and right click, and I'll select insert. This is one way of inserting a new column. So you can see a new column has been added here. So I can come here and type March. And maybe in March we made 65. Okay, so these are what we can do to the column. Okay, maybe I'm seeing this. Let's put our expenses. Maybe I put my expenses. Yeah, maybe we spent in January we spent about 10,000, and maybe in February we spent about 12,000, and maybe in March we spent about 14,000. And in April we spent about, let's say, 15,000. So this was our expenses. I also want to put the freight, the amount to spend on freight, and having typed sales and expenses, I want to put that in between sales and expenses. So what I can do is to go to the row, right click there and select insert. Can you see it? So a new row has been added here. So I can come here and put freight. Maybe for freight was maybe we spend about 900, and maybe the next month we spent about 1,200, and this month we spent about 1,400, and this we spent about no, this is 14,000. So this month we spent about 1,400. And this other month to spend about 1,500. In this section, I've been able to create a new column and also a new row. Okay, so this is how we do it in Microsoft Excel. This is how we create a new column and a new row in Microsoft Excel. So the next thing we want to look at now is how do we make sure that we can hide. Take for instance, I want to hide March. I don't want March to show. So the same way I can come here, right click on the header, then click there, and I can come here and say hide. So I can select hide, and that means it has been hidden. So you can see January, you can see February, there is no March, but there is April. So if I want to unhide, how do I know it has been hidden? You can see between there is D here, there is no E, and there is F. It means that E has been hidden. So if I want to unhide, I will need to select these two columns. Okay, right click and select unhide, and that will unhide the March column. So the same thing happens to the row. If I want to hide this, I can right click here and hide this row. But if I want to unhide, you can see there is 4 and there is 6, there is no 5. If I want to unhide, I'll have to come here, select these two rows and right click and select unhide, and that will unhide the 5th row. So this is how we hide, and this is also how we unhide in Microsoft Excel. So if I don't want to go through the stress of doing this manually, I can use a feature in Microsoft Excel which is called Autofill. So all I just need to do is to type the first month, January. I'll click outside and click inside again, then go straight to this box, click on it and drag. Now I've gotten to December, and then I'll leave my mouse. So this is what we call autofill. It filled it from January to December for me. The same thing applies to quarters. So I can do the same thing for quarters. I can just type quarter 1 and click outside, click back inside, click on this small icon here and drag. You can see I can have quarter 1 to quarter 4. So this feature applies to certain kinds of data, not all kinds of data. So the same thing applies to if I type 1 and maybe I type 2 and I want to do an autofill here, I will need to type 1 and 2 to increase this value by 1. So each of the values will be increased by 1. So if I highlight on the two of them, click on the side, drag down, all I'll see here is the numbers will be increasing. So this gives me a series, a series of values. The same thing applies to other numbers. If I want a step of 5, I'll type 5 and type 10. Then I'll highlight on the two of them. Then click by the side. Click on this black icon by the side, the autofill icon, and drag down. So here you have these values increasing by 5. So this is how we run autofill in Microsoft Excel. So let's get back to our data and work on it. So I'll highlight on everything here to delete in Excel. I can highlight there and press the delete button on my keyboard. The other way I can do that is for me to right click and I'll go to clear content. So these are two ways we can delete items from the Microsoft sheet. Okay, so what I will need to do here is, this space here is too tiny. I want to create a bigger space. So remember, we say we can insert. I can come and click on insert, or I can also come here, having selected this particular column, I can come and click on insert, and I will say insert a sheet column. So this is another way we can insert columns. If I want to insert 2 columns at the same time, all I need to do is to highlight on 2 columns, and I'll just come here the same way. I say insert sheet columns. That will give me 4 columns. Okay, so that's how we increase the number of columns in Microsoft Excel. So if I want to add like 6 columns, the same thing, I'll highlight on 3 columns, then I'll insert those 3 columns. Okay, so all I just need is extra 2 columns, and that's good for me. So Ctrl Z to take me back to where I was before. Ctrl Z means to undo what you have just done. So let's assume that our sales for the first month of January will be, let's estimate the sales for the first month, the freight, the cost of goods, which is our inventory, and last but not the least, our expenses. So look at this. There is no the space between the cost of goods. This cost of goods is in this cell, but it's showing in I. Okay, the cost of goods is in this cell. Okay, it's in this cell called H6, but it's showing I. For me to actually make sure it does not show in I, because if I start typing anything here, you can see now that I'm not seeing everything again. So what I want to do is I want this to have its own space. So all I need to do is to come to the in between H and I will come in here and just double click, and that will give me a very good space. Okay, so what I would want to do is to type the sales for January. What will be our sales? What's the estimate? What's our forecast for sales for January? Let's say we're estimating we sell 30,000. The cost of goods, the freight, let's estimate our freight to be like 1,200. The cost of goods, let's estimate that the cost of goods will be like 18,000. And last but not the least, our expenses, let's estimate that our expenses will be like 2,000. Okay, so this is just an estimation. This brings me to a very important concept, and that is formula. So in our next class, we'll be looking at what formula is and how do we create formulas in Microsoft Excel. Thank you.